All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our 6th edition BCBA task list series. Today we're continuing concepts and principles with B7, unconditioned, conditioned, and generalized reinforcers. As with many of our concepts and principles, this is not the most difficult topic in the world, but with everything, with all of our items, with all of our task list ideas and concepts, we need to be fluent in everything, not just what we consider difficult or not difficult. Every item we need to be fluent in, not just familiar with, but fluent in. So we're going to break down each type of reinforcer in a way that we feel is going to be the best to help you pass your exam. As always, please subscribe if you aren't already to get all of our video updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our proven combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. So let's start here. We're talking about reinforcement, unconditioned, conditioned, and generalized. And how are these different? What is the distinction? Well, the distinction is how they acquire and apply their reinforcing properties. So we want to understand these distinctions so we can design effective interventions. All these concepts, all these principles, all these building blocks are what we're going to base all of our interventions on. So if we don't understand these basics, designing interventions and understanding the more complex ideas is going to be that much more difficult. Now, unconditioned reinforcement or primary reinforcement requires no prior learning, typically genetic. Think water and food. Conditioned reinforcement gains value through pairing. So often we'll condition a stimulus by taking a neutral stimulus and pairing it repeatedly with something unconditioned, let's say food, or we'll take a neutral stimulus and pair it with an already conditioned stimulus to give it reinforcing properties. And then generalized reinforcers maintain value across different situations through multiple pairings. So we're taking a broad reinforcer, think of a token, and pairing it with a bunch of different stimuli so that it is resistant to satiation and it is more effective in more scenarios or environments. So let's start with unconditioned reinforcement, also known as primary reinforcement. They're inherently reinforcing due to biological significance. In other words, we're born with these, and given enough time, these stimuli will act as reinforcement. Or at least I've worked with children who refuse to, let's say, eat or drink water. Given enough time, they're going to eat or drink something because the alternative is not good, right? And so even though these unconditioned reinforcers aren't necessarily their favorite, given enough time, they are going to act as reinforcement. And for you or me, if I go longer and longer and longer without eating, well, then food is going to be more and more reinforcing to us. So unconditioned reinforcers are very tied to motivating operations in the sense of deprivation and satiation. And that's going to come up again when we talk about our generalized conditioned reinforcement. They don't require prior learning or conditioning. So we just have these reinforcers that we can just use without having to worry about conditioning or learning. Now, obviously, there are some drawbacks if we're using the same thing over and over again. Satiation might occur. There's also the health aspect of using something like food for reinforcement, but these are typically universally effective for most individuals. So if we just can't find anything else, then using something unconditioned might just be the way to go. Unconditioned reinforcement is also a good thing to use when generalizing because unconditioned reinforcement happens quite a lot in the natural environment. So some clear examples, I should say, is food, water, and physical warmth. If someone is very cold, becoming warm and finding warmth, they don't have to learn that it's not conditioned. That's going to function as reinforcement regardless of prior learning history. Now, conditioned reinforcement. We're going to deal a lot with conditioned reinforcement because we're always trying to create new reinforcers. The more options we have when it comes to reinforcement, the better. We're always trying to avoid satiation. Conditioned reinforcers or secondary reinforcers acquire properties through pairing with unconditioned or previously conditioned reinforcement. So you take a neutral stimulus and you pair it with, let's say, an unconditioned reinforcer or a neutral stimulus and a conditioned reinforcer, and you're going to create a conditioned reinforcer. And you want to pair by presenting both items at the same time. If I'm trying to make praise function as reinforcement, right? Because we want praise as a social reinforcer. I'm going to praise and deliver the M&M at the same time, right? And that's how pairing works. Whatever I'm trying to pair, I want to deliver at the same time as what's already functioning as reinforcement. So value, and that's obviously in quotes, right? Value is learned through experience and association, aka pairing. All that says is these reinforcing properties are acquired through learning history and pairing. These can be highly individualized based on learning history. If you work in the field long enough, and if you're working with people with autism, you might see a wide range of reinforcement. I've seen paper towels act as reinforcement sometimes. It's all based on learning history. It's all conditioned. Do we always know why they become reinforcers as far as the stimuli go? No. Do we always care? No. If I need a reinforcer because I'm trying to teach something, I'm going to use whatever reinforcing in that situation. And then through pairing, I can try and create new reinforcement. So money is a very obvious one, right? Money becomes a reinforcer through its association with food, shelter, and other necessities and wants. If I give $100 to a 4-year-old who has no idea what money is, that might just be a piece of paper to them. They might have an idea of what it is, but it doesn't hold any real reinforcing properties. If I give them $100 and then say, here's 4 video games in exchange for the $100, well, now that money has meaning. That money's been conditioned, which leads us to our final type, which is generalized conditioned reinforcement or generalized reinforcers. They're a type of conditioned reinforcer that has been paired with multiple other reinforcers, making them effective in a variety of contexts. And the key here with generalized reinforcement is it's paired with multiple other reinforcers, right? So we don't just stop at one pairing, we're pairing this with a variety of backup reinforcement. Some benefits: less likely to lose effectiveness due to satiation because they've been paired with so many other stimuli. They're widely effective across different settings and situations because the generalized reinforcer is paired with all these other reinforcements, right? So it can be used in different settings and different situations. It does not necessarily depend on establishing operations. We don't have to manipulate satiation or deprivation to give our GCRs reinforcing properties. They're commonly referred to as generalized conditioned reinforcers because the most common one we think of are tokens. Tokens are paired with all these different types of reinforcement, right? Reinforcement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So tokens have the history with a variety of reinforcement, and we're going to exchange the tokens, right? And so the tokens are very generalized. I can use tokens in a lot of different situations because of the learning history with all of this other reinforcement. And we don't have to depend on establishing operations because there are so many different options with which the tokens are paired. So when you're creating GCRs, you want to take something like a token and pair it with as many backups as possible or that you'll think will be effective. So key takeaways: helps when selecting reinforcers for individuals or pairing new reinforcers, especially pairing if you know something is reinforcing already, and that's a great stimulus to use for pairing and creating new reinforcement. Unconditioned reinforcers are primary, require no pairing. It's all based on genetic history, essentially, right? What we're born with. Conditioned reinforcement, secondary, are paired with other reinforcers, so neutral stimulus plus some sort of unconditioned or conditioned reinforcement, right? And then GCRs, generalized reinforcers, are paired with many reinforcers and typically effective in many contexts. So that is the breakdown of our reinforcers or different type of reinforcers and reinforcement. Again, not the most complex of ideas. But we need to be fluent because we're building on these concepts to get to the more difficult ideas. Don't skip A and B, which you might think are easy. Okay. You have to be fluent in everything. As always, please subscribe as we continue on our 6th edition task list series. You'll get all of our video updates, 3 BCBA videos a week plus the RBT content. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.